Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to be implementing our hilarious image of Rick with silly looking hat on and playing around with the anchor points to make sure that when we change the aspect ratio of our game, or if the player's changing the aspect ratio, that our elements stay anchored to where we want them to stay on the screen and don't have any weird stretching and don't have any weird floating. So let's jump in and talk anchor points. Because we're starting a new section, we need to start a new project. I'm calling mine Number Wizard UI, saving it in repos, didn't mean to click it, Unity 2D Number Wizard UI is where I'm selecting my project, and 2D as our template, and I'm using 2018.2. Create project. This will take a minute or so, so what I'm going to do is pause my recording. You might want to pause the video, and then once Unity has loaded up the project, I will see you back here. Welcome back. I'm going to start this process by saving our scene as something different. I'm going to save as, we'll put it into the scenes folder. It's quite clever. We have a scenes folder in there. Well done, default Unity. Thank you for that. We will call this start menu. This will be this scene. It's okay to have spaces when we're naming our scenes. No worries. Click save on that. We have start menu and sample scene. I'm going to go ahead and delete sample scene. We don't need that anymore. Let's go into our hierarchy, right-click, go to UI, and click on Canvas. That will create a UI canvas. Might need to double-click on it to get it nice and highlighted on the scene here. The first thing I'll do while on Canvas is change our UI scale mode to scale with screen size. If it's on constant pixel size, then it will try to keep everything the exact pixels that we have on our screen here, no matter what's going on. I'm also going to put the reference resolution to 1920 by 1080. That shows Unity, this is what we think it's most likely to be, and scale from this resolution. Use that as our benchmark. Okay, we've got our canvas, we've set that up. I'm going to right-click on canvas, scroll down to UI, and we will put in a button. Click on button. You see button sitting on the screen there. Might need to scroll in a little bit. I'm going to make my button a little bit bigger, again, just by dragging on the bottom, dragging on the right, dragging on the top. We can scale up our button. I'll move the button over to the right a little bit, and there we go. We have ourselves a button. And we're looking at the functionality of the button in the next couple of videos, but for now we're looking at the positioning and the scaling and the anchoring of the button. If you look in the middle of your screen, you can see that we have our anchor points. All 4 anchor points are together. That means that we have this one central anchor point. The different anchor points relate to the different sides of our button. So the top left anchor point relates to the top left of our button, the bottom right to the bottom right, and so on. We can grab the anchor points and stretch them out. That's going to show there's a relationship between this top left point and that top left point there. What relationship, I hear you ask? Well, this is important if our screen resolution changes. So if I switch from 16:9 to say 5:4, and you can see 5:4 is more of a squarish resolution, whereas 16:9 is more of a widescreen resolution. You can see when we change to 5:4, you can see that our box stretched up a little bit here. If we click on our button and click on our anchor presets, we can change that to, for example, just the bottom right here. The options around the outside are for stretching, and the options within the inside here are to anchor to particular points. So you can see left, center, and right, top, middle, and bottom. And you can see stretch and stretch. If we were to say, let's anchor to left and top, we click on this button just here. Now our anchor points all move up, all 4 of them move up to the top left. If we say, well, what about if it's right and bottom? Then they all move down to the bottom right. If we click on stretching, that's when they pull apart, and they say, when the canvas grows, then the button should grow in the same proportion to the canvas. It should stretch up in the same way that the canvas is doing. We see that a lot more pronounced. If we go to free aspect, then when we stretch and move it, it changes based upon the distance from this point to that anchor, that point to that anchor. It's trying to keep those distances the same, irrespective of what size this canvas is changed to. What we're more likely to do with our button is say, let's anchor our button to, for example, the top right of the screen. And I'll move it up a little bit more so we can see this more clearly. So I'll move it up there to the top right. It's anchored to the top right, still on free aspect. As we move around, you can see that it's staying up in the top right of our screen over here. It's not moving to different parts. If I was to move it around like this and to say, let's anchor to the bottom left, then as we move it around, it's going to try to keep it in the same distance from the bottom left to our anchor point down the bottom. I'm going to switch back to 16:9 and I'll show you, move my button back into the middle here. I'll show you another example which has to do with images. So I've given you a couple of images against this lecture for you to download. They may be zipped, but go grab those if you'd like, or you can totally use your own images. If you want to play around with your own images, I've got my hilarious wizard images here. So I'm going to drag those into my project. Just click and drag. Here we go. We've got a Rick and we've got a Ben. Now within Canvas, so click on Canvas, right click, go to UI and then Image. I'm going to move my image just a little bit out of the way. Careful you don't accidentally grab the anchor points. That's pretty easy to do. I'm going to move my image down the bottom left. That's good. Now what I want to do is to have the Rick image be placed on top of my image game object here. So I'm going to change this to, rename it to Wizard Rick, so it's nice and clear what we're doing here. And from in the inspector, while I'm clicked on Wizard Rick, if I click on under image, you can see there's a source image, currently is none. If I click on the selector, scroll down until I find the image I'm looking for, which is the Wizard Rick, and that replaces the white box with our image. Pretty easy. Now, I can move around and scale this image. One of the issues you see that if I scale it like that, it gets stretched and a little bit ugly. And if you do that, if you get it stretched and it's out of proportion, it's really easy to get it back is by click Set Native Size in the inspector. So you see Set Native Size, click on that, and it will take it back to the size that you imported it at. I'm going to reposition this a little bit over onto the left and make it a bit bigger in the screen by holding down Shift and scaling up. That will scale it in proportion. That'll keep the aspect ratio correct. Okay, currently you can see that Wizard Rick is anchored to the middle of the screen. That should be okay, but if someone's playing at an aspect ratio of 4:3, you can see we've now got this huge big gap underneath Wizard Rick, and it looks pretty terrible. So what I want to do is to have it so it doesn't float in mid-air, and that is a challenge I'm going to set for you. How can we anchor Wizard Rick in a way that he doesn't float with a big gap underneath him? I'm also going to set you the challenge of setting up your button. Don't worry about the look of the button just yet. We'll be doing that in upcoming videos, but get your button so it is anchored to the right of the screen. So here is the challenge. Anchor your elements, create a start button and anchor it to the right of the screen, import an image or use the image that I've given to you and anchor to the bottom left of the screen so that if the screen resolution changes, those two elements stay in sensible positions and don't look too crazy. So there's your challenge. Jump in and take that on and I'll see you back here in a moment. Okay, welcome back. So what I'm going to do with the Wizard Rick here, clicking on Wizard Rick, I'm going to change the anchor point to the bottom left, and I could just move it down to the bottom left like that. I'm going to show you a little trick here. If you're clicked on the anchor presets, if you hold down, there's a couple of clues here, Shift and Alt. If you hold down Alt and then find the bottom left, if I click on that, it will shift the image down to the bottom left. I could have clicked on Shift top left, or top right, or another position, and that just helps me easily position things on the screen. Not critical to do that, that's just to help you line things up. So checking my pivot is in the bottom left. Now if I change my aspect ratio to any of these other things, it's still staying bottom left no matter what, so we don't get that weird gap underneath. I know that 16:9 is probably the lowest of my profiles, so long as my image fits on the screen at 16:9 and isn't chopped off at the top, I know that all is good. Now with the button, I'm just make my button a little bit more of a sensible shape. Don't worry about the text for the moment, we'll be dealing with that in upcoming videos. And I will click on my anchoring, click on the right, so middle and right is fine. You could do it bottom right if you wanted, or top right, either of those is fine. I'll do it middle right. That means it will be maintaining a distance, an equal distance from the right-hand side of our button to this point right in the middle of the screen. So if we scale around our screen, you can see that there's a lot of things added to the top and the bottom, a lot of space added to the top and the bottom, but the button stays mostly in the middle. Might want to move that down a little bit for this aspect ratio. And at 16:10 it looks fine, 16:9 it looks good as well. Okay, so that is us. We've started the process of anchoring. We've imported an image, created a button. We're going to be doing a lot more cool stuff with buttons in upcoming videos. Great work, and I will see you in the next video.